This is the hip hop summary. So when we look at hip hop, we have to look at this art form that comes out of the South Bronx poverty of the 1970s. There are 5 elements to hip hop, and I've outlined them here: the DJ, the MC, the graffiti artist, the b-boy, the b-girl, as well as knowledge, having an understanding of the future and the past, and using that information to try to improve the next generation. So all of these components create hip hop, and rap music would actually develop as a result of the success of the MC. So rap music is actually considered one of the elements of hip hop culture. So how does this art form begin? We have to look at the Cross Bronx Expressway that was developed. Here we see, another line giving you a visual representation of that. So when we're looking at the 1970s, you have to have an understanding of what becomes known as white flight and the process of redlining. So white flight could be a situation where the white individuals decide to move. So let's just say this is the white area, this is a Black and Hispanic area. As these individuals here expand, that might prompt the white population to get out and leave for various reasons. So it's could be for that. It doesn't always have to be about racial reasons. It could be other motives. But white flight is that understanding in the 70s that, when certain groups move in, the white population is going to move out. So now if we use the belief system that for the 1970s, the white population in New York has more wealth than people of color, they would also take their wealth with them, leaving this area in a poverty state. Redlining was the practice of intentionally directing through real estate agents Black population from moving into white areas and trying to stop integration. So what we know here is that when the Cross Bronx Expressway is built, it leads to white flight, and that creates a situation where now you start to see poverty in these areas because the argument here is that the white population that has left. Let's just say they're business owners. So we'll just put like the white business owners, they leave, they go over here, and that then creates poverty here, which leads to a cutting of programs, cutting of fire department, and so on. When you see the red, these are sources, by the way, feel free to look those up. And then, of course, we have the practice of benign neglect. So what is benign neglect? It is a Nixon policy dealing with the race problem. And in this approach, pretty much says that the civil rights movement has been a failure, and we are going to resolve the race problem by just kind of allowing things to work out on their own. Let's see. And for here it says, we are a long way from solving it. They're talking about the race problem in America. And then they go on to say, well, we'll just kind of let the race problem figure it out on its own. So that seems to be benign neglect. The end result is it is going to lead to poverty and a lot of programs being cut. So here we see an image of the South Bronx in the 1970s. The phrase "the Bronx is burning" was a popular phrase for that time period. It was associated with poverty. Here we see some more images of South Bronx poverty, politicians visiting the area. So the South Bronx becomes a symbol of poverty in the 1970s. Just a lot of abandonment, a lot of poor individuals living in an area that seems to be uninhabitable. The end result is this is going to lead to the creation of gangs. So let's just say that gang 1 controls this area and gang 2 controls this area. They would be competing. What are they competing for? Who knows? It could just be territory. It could be illegal activity. But we do know that the South Bronx is plagued by gangs. Here we see some images of the youth, which pretty much have no social programs and a educational system that, for the most part, has failed them. And they see the gang as a place where they can feel comfortable and gain some sort of prestige. If you click this link, it would take you to the documentary Flying Cut Sleeves. And in that documentary, if you go to 30 minutes, they will be looking at what becomes known as the Ho Ave Truce. In the Ho Ave Truce, you see gang members, and they are trying to deal with the issue of gang activity in their neighborhood. So how does this all connect to hip hop? Well, these three individuals are considered the three founders of what would eventually become hip hop. Here we see Kool Herc. So Kool Herc is this individual, and he throws the first party at 1520 Sedgwick Ave. Here's the advert for his party. And what he did was he was able to take two records and extend the break. So what does that mean? That means you have a verse, and then you have the break, which is the drum solo. Then you have a verse, and then you have the drum solo. What he did was he figured out a way to just play this, and he cut this out. So now you have a drum solo, and maybe you now have just the drum. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that's my terrible drum. That then leads to a situation where the dancing needs to speed up, which is why people are spinning on their heads and breakdancing. Why? Because the music allows it. Because the music is playing at a faster BPM, beats per minute. Let's look at the next individual, this guy right here, Flash. What does Flash do? Well, he figures out a way to come up with the merry-go-round. He figures that we need to come up with a way to make the transition smoother. And he uses what's called the mixer, and he takes that break and he extends it. So he plays that break, but he does it in a way that's smooth by the utilization of a mixer, which is a machine that allows you to, get the transition without any sort of, blank spot, dead air. So where does this guy come in? This is Africa Bambaataa. Africa Bambaataa is the leader of the biggest gang in New York, the Black Spades. And here we see their territory that they control. So after the Hoab truce, Africa Bambaataa, you start to see this desire to go from like this area to this area. And here we would be talking about two different gangs. So there would be fear that you're going to get maybe beat up or killed. So Bambaataa starts to say, well, we need to develop a truce. We want to have free travel from one place to another. We want to be able to go to a party here, even if we're from here. You may not be a member of my gang, but we are going to have a truce. And the Black Spades is going to be the gang that's going to implement the truce. So he creates a situation of safety for individuals that were formerly gang members. Here we see some of the graffiti artists. If you're looking for the evolution of history or the history of graffiti artists, in the 60s, they were used to identify racial areas. So here we see, white power. So they really were designed, graffiti was really used to mark territories, racial territories during segregation. And graffiti artists would then take that concept and then come up with unique individual pieces of art. Punk, homosexual, and hip hop. There is a link. So here we see the South Bronx. Here we see Manhattan. Manhattan is associated with money because it's in New York City. So where does punk come in? And these homosexuals and hip hop. So the punk movement, which is another genre of music, is starting to gain steam in Manhattan. And they have some friends with people in the hip hop community. If you look at this song, Rapture by Blondie, you would see elements of that at the end where Blondie starts rapping, and she actually has Lee Quinones and Fab Five Freddy, who are hip hop artists from the South Bronx, both being graffiti artists. Anyway, so we have an alignment between the punk and the hip hop. The punk artists are going to help bring hip hop or rap music into Manhattan as a way to get money. So where do the homosexuals come in? Well, the homosexuals are primarily DJs during the disco era of the 1970s. So if you wanted to get your record played, you probably needed to go to the DJ. And disco seems to be the genre of music that is considered gay tribal music. So in order for you to get your punk song or your hip hop song, your rap song played, you probably need to go to the DJ. So there is a link between these three here. That's pretty much it.